Recording.
Thank you, and welcome everybody. Let me start off by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the many lands we're running this training on. Pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and any that we have dialing in with us, welcome. And we do have participants from across New Zealand, which is wonderful, and we'll certainly be tapping into some local knowledge as we go throughout this this course. Now, Marissa, why did we hit the record button?
Ken, we're recording all of the sessions. We will be recording all of the sessions throughout the training course, and we'll have them available on our learning management system for you to watch back at any time if you happen to miss a session or miss any of the content, or simply if you'd like to just watch any of the sessions back just for a bit of a refresh. So they'll all be available for you to watch back at any time. And we have a content warning there, Ken. Why is that one?
Yeah, so we do show some road crash scenes, nothing overly graphic, but we're trying to learn what caused the crash and what caused the severity of injury in different crashes, and look at how we can prevent the crashes or lessen the severity of them. So we do that, but if that's something that could disturb you, we just flag that as a warning at this stage. Now, over to you, Marissa. You can introduce yourself.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I am training coordinator at Safe Systems Solutions, and I'm very much behind the scenes helping you all get enrolled into your programs and setting up all of our training programs so we can have a smooth run today. At any time, if you're having any troubles, if you can't make a session, if you're having any tech issues or admin questions, please contact me or any of us in the team. My email address, or our email address, is training@safesystemsolutions.com.au, which many of you would have already received a bunch of emails from. So please shoot us an email there at any time. If you do have any tech issues today, first thing that always usually works is just to leave the webinar and then jump back in. That seems to fix most of the issues. But if you're having any other problems after that, a good old reboot usually tends to do the trick.
Yeah, and that's right. If things go really bad, though, don't worry too much, because there is the recording that you would be able to use. Right. But let's go through a little bit of Zoom keeping. Now, everybody's pretty good at Zoom these days, but we've got 3 abilities there for you to interact. The first one we've got is the chat, and we do encourage you to chat behind the scenes, as many of you are already doing, saying hi. And over here, you'll see you've got the ability to talk to everybody, and that's nice. Like, we don't have that lovely, morning tea and lunch where we can all chat to each other and the like. So we have to use the chat. But please do that. I will ask you lots of questions, and we want you answering them in the chat using that chat function. We do have the ability to let you unmute yourself. You're locked from that at the moment. We do that so we don't hear all your dogs barking and your colleagues shouting in the background and all those fun things that happen. But if you did want to talk, ask a question, make a specific comment, you could raise your hand, and we would then give you the ability to unmute yourself. There is no possibility for your camera to be working during these webinar versions of Zoom. Now, if you've got specific questions for me about the content that you'd like me to cover in more detail or answer, pop them into the Q&A, and others can then like those or add comments to it. But that Marissa will be behind the scenes monitoring the Q&A and the chat, but feeding me those questions in the Q&A. So just to summarize there, chat away and Q&As through to me, and I will answer any questions we have along the way. Did I miss anything there, Marissa?
No, perfectly explained. I'll be there monitoring all your questions. So, yep, please pop anything in there.
Great. So there's a number of different presenters of the technical content for this course. So I will run a fair bit of it. So my name's Ken Beer. I'm the principal engineer at Safe System Solutions and have many years experience road safety auditing and doing safe system assessment. Not so many years doing safe system audits as a combined thing. However, that's simply because it's a very new process, the idea of combining. But I'll explain this all shortly. But I also have my colleague who runs our New Zealand Safe System Solutions, and that's Sam Paisley. And many of you will probably know Sam. He's been around road safety in New Zealand for many, many years, and really active practitioner and does a lot of safe system audits and other road safety work. So Sam will come in. Sam's going to come in one of the later modules to talk specifically about New Zealand process, policy practices, sort of business case, integration of safe system audits into business cases, and very specific New Zealand stuff at local government level, but also at Wakatahi level. So yeah, you can ask me questions along the way. Some of those I might save for man on the ground there. A couple of other people who you will see throughout this. Max McCardle from Safe System Solutions. Max has a lot of specialty in cycling and pedestrian infrastructure, and he'll probably be talking about some of that and might jump in on a couple of other specialist sessions as well. And another New Zealander that many of you would recognise, Fergus Tate from WSP. And Ferg, again, been around road safety for a long time. I'll get Ferg to come in and talk a little bit about the audits of sort of detailed designs and those very design-end ones. And him and I had a good bit of a chat about some of those technical aspects, which is always fun, and those who know Fergie's a character, so we have a bit of a laugh in there as well. Now, Marissa, talk us through this learning management system you mentioned before.
Yes, we have our learning management system, which houses all of the resources that you'll need in order to successfully complete this course. It will house the recordings, as I mentioned earlier, copies of presentations from each of the modules, any quizzes or tasks and assignments that we'll get you to do throughout the course. Hopefully you would have all received instructions from us that we've emailed through, and the emails from the learning management system with your login details. We hope that you've had a chance to log in and have a browse around the course site. If you have had any troubles logging in, if you can't get in or any issues at all, please email us at training at safesystemsolutions.com.au. And or pop it into you're welcome to pop it into the chat, and I can address any of your queries there. But you will need access to the LMS in order to complete this course.
Yes. Thank you. And that email address is your name there, Marissa, so anybody can do that. And if they haven't got that email or can't find it, yeah, I'll just reiterate that. I think Marissa said it twice, and I'm going to add a third one there. You cannot pass this course if you don't have access to the learning management system. So make sure you've got access. Awesome. Thank you. Now,
it's our friend Wally.
Wally is back. So Wally the Wombat is this little warning sign, Wally Wombat warning sign. And you're going to have to count the number of times Wally appears in the slides throughout the different modules. So we have a few little tricks to try to get you engaged in the content here. I know it's tempting to do those emails on the side and finish that roundabout design that's a little bit behind schedule. But we ask that you keep an eye on the slides and listen in and watch for Wallies. Count your Wallies. That will be one question in the quiz you have at the end of each module, which is going to be a series of questions. So I'm just going to get you to mute there, Marissa. I'm getting a lot of feedback. Yeah, so you'll get some questions at the end in the learning management system, and you will have to answer those. One of them will be how many times did Wally appear in today's session? Now, this Wally doesn't count. He's just an example Wally. And so Wally counts 0, but we'll go from there. All right, now you can win prizes. Another little trick we've got to try to keep you engaged. You can win prizes if you answer question. Oh, Marissa's in the prize pit. I don't know if it'll be a stuffed Superman.
I'm doing my what's the game show sale of the century type thing here. Here are the prizes. No, we're not going to send you out a Batman or a Superman, but we will get you engaged. Ken has lots of activities throughout the sessions, and he will call on the best prize or the best answers to his questions and so on to win a bunch of prizes today. So we're looking for your interaction. Pick any one of these and I'll send it out. Little Peppa Pig, whatever you choose. No, we won't send you out a Peppa Pig or a Superman, but we will send you out something cute and interesting.
Yes, so you get those at the end of the course once you've successfully completed it, because you'll get an electronic copy of your certificate, but we also send you a hard copy of your certificate and a few of the prizes you've won along the way. Now, as Marissa mentioned there, answer questions, ask questions, volunteer for case studies. And this one, arrive early, log in early for future sessions. We'll do a little bit of trivia. And anybody coming to the Australasian College of Road Safety Conference in Cairns this year, well, then you're up for some intense trivia, because we'll be running a little trivia night there with road safety trivia. But our trivia in these ones could be anything. Could be general knowledge trivia, could be road trivia, could be anything. Just a bit of fun to get us going and try and incentivize you to log in early. Okay, into some of the specific requirements of this. We do have a competency benchmark that must be achieved in order for you to get a certificate from Safe System Solutions. And that is to attend 5 of the 6 live webinars. Now, you would love you at 6 of 6. We know, though, that sometimes there's unmovable meetings or things pop up. So you view that one you haven't been able to attend if that happens. Now, if you need an exemption on that, send Marissa an email and have a chat. Okay, completion of all set tasks and 80%. So the benchmark is 80% on the graded assignments and quizzes. So it sounds pretty high. We don't shy away from that. We want to ensure that everybody has this decent level of understanding around safe system auditing. And we will support you through this. We will build your competency. So if you need one-on-one coaching, we are available. We have a series of senior auditors that can have one-on-one catch-ups with you. You can email questions through. You can phone in with questions. We are here to support you and help you through this. It shouldn't be overly hard, because everything will be covered in the content of each module that you will be quizzed on. You'll be shown examples of how to do things, and it's just about you applying that. So if you're listening, if you're engaging with the content, nothing here is rocket science, so you should be okay. So I'll pause there and just check whether people have any logistical questions. Marissa, if there's anything you'd like to add, if we've missed anything.
I'm just getting a couple comments that a couple people's screens seem to be probably frozen on one of the previous slides. If that's the case, probably try leaving the webinar and rejoining quickly. And it's, a couple people have done that and it's all good now. So that might have been just some IT issues on your end. So try leaving and rejoining.
Okay, well,
hope you won't miss much.
Yeah, well, how about while we do that, we just do a little bit of poll out of interest to see where people are at. Now, there's no prerequisite requirements for you to have done any other courses in the past to do this one, or have any existing knowledge, or we'll start very basic and we'll ease you into it. But I was just interested to see if people had done some other training courses in the past. So which of these training courses have you completed before? Road safety audit, safe system assessment, or none? Now, that is, as I say, you don't need to have done anything, but we're just interested. Okay, we're getting some answers coming in here. And while we're just collecting a few of those answers from people, if you've answered, and a few, I'm seeing some results already, we'll share the results with you shortly. If you answered yes to a road safety audit or a safe system assessment course, give us a thumbs up if it was with Safe System Solutions, if it was with someone else. So just see maybe a few of those pop up. I think you can do a thumbs up at the end. Okay, a couple there. Thank you. All right.
I'll end the poll there.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, the results.
Right, so we've got a lot of people who are fresh to all of this, and that's great. Welcome. You'll enjoy this. Those who have done a road safety audit course in the past or a safe system assessment course, you'll be a little bit of an advantage in the sense that a lot of the content is similar. As new stuff associated with how these combine, how you present it, and those sorts of questions. Certainly those that were giving some thumbs up there, who have done Safe System Solutions, road safety audit course or safe system assessment course, you'll see a few of the same slides and examples on a few different things, lots of new stuff, but that is, I'll explain why that is shortly. It's because essentially a safe system audit is a combination of a road safety audit and a safe system assessment. So it makes sense that you'll be seeing similar stuff. Great. Thank you. That's good. Really excited to have this group. Lots of people who are just getting started in this idea of safe system auditing. And it's kind of a fun time to kick it off as well, because there's been those changes recently in New Zealand as to how this whole process works. Okay, Marissa, are you happy for me to jump into a bit of content?
Sure, let's kick it off.
Okay, we will give you a little stretch break, a little fill your coffee up break around halftime, and let's get into it. Okay, so the Road to Zero strategy, the New Zealand Road Safety Strategy 2020 to 2030, it's really a really good document. I do point to this document when I'm traipsing around the world doing road safety stuff. I point to this one for a number of specific things because I think it's got some really cutting edge thinking in there, and really, I suppose, thoughtfully and elegantly presented in some of the ideas. But one of the things that I think is really interesting in there is a distinct commitment to safe system training and having that as a KPI. How much of the professional community have been exposed to safe system training and understand the safe system and the fundamentals of the safe system, which is what we start off with in this course. And also then the idea of projects being subject to road safety audits and or safe system assessments. And since the release of this document, we can now sort of say just safe system audits. So those are two very clear KPIs from the New Zealand government to say the safe system is extremely important to us. We want to build capability, capacity in safe system, and we want projects to be assessed for their alignment with safe system principles. And so you can naturally see flowing from that, there are requirements in projects for safe system audits to be undertaken. and a lot of local governments as well are picking up on this and integrating that into their practices of infrastructure planning, design, and development. Well, there's a Wally. Okay, Wally count is 1. If that's, I'm not going to help you with Wallies from here on. Okay, so the SAFE system as a concept really entered into New Zealand a while back, and it was kind of this diagram that was getting bandied around at an Austroads level. So Austroads being the member organisation for New Zealand and Australian road authorities, which does a lot of the overarching work, sets the guidelines and the like. But this diagram was getting debated at that level. And actually, I'll chuck out a prize. Can somebody tell me what year this was? This idea of the SAFE system was accepted in New Zealand? And if you can guess, you don't lose any points. That you're not marked for anything in the course. It's all your quiz afterwards. But chuck out a guess on a day, a year. Now, anybody who did the SAFE system assessment course with SAFE System Solutions, now I'm checking your memory, but it doesn't look like anybody's remembering that. So this is when New Zealand adopted the SAFE system. It was pretty much this diagram that was being adopted. Lots of guesses coming in. Lots around the sort of 2010 to 2015 area. I think Callum's going to get the prize. Callum, first prize winner. Oh, Shay's just come through. I will give Callum and Shay a prize. It was 2004 was the year. There was, exactly when things were signed off, but 2004 was about the time. So we're talking 20 years ago that the SAFE system was first accepted in New Zealand as the philosophy under which the road transport system will be managed to ensure the safety of the community. So, wow, that's a long time ago, isn't it? It's been around a while. We're seeing a lot more mechanisms for operationalizing the SAFE system in New Zealand, and gee, in the past sort of 5 years, there's been a real ramp up in some of the stuff that's happening, and it's really wonderful to see. So some great initiatives and great commitment from Waka Kotahi and local governments as well. But the diagram back in the day was this. Now, at the center of this diagram, human tolerance to physical force. What an odd concept for the transport or like a road transport system map. Human tolerance to physical force. How much force can the human body handle before it breaks? That was right at that's right at the center of it, and we'll explore that in a lot more detail. But then they had these elements that could be used and leveraged to make things safer. The vehicles, the speeds, and the roads and roadsides. And a circle was drawn around that. And that was essentially the whole SAFE system. That was the SAFE system. It said, well, we'll get vehicles that are safer, we'll have roads and roadsides that are safer, and we'll operate everything at a speed that's appropriate to that vehicle and that roadside. And so if anything happens, we will make sure that those forces are within tolerable levels. End of SAFE system. And then at that Australians level, and there are Australians in the room, New Zealanders, everybody's debating. And there's some people adamantly saying, well, what about the people? What about the users? The people who are using the system, they have to be safe too. They have to act safely. They have to be alert and compliant, and they have to do the right things. We can't have a safe system without that. And this sort of divided the room. And we had one side of the room saying that exactly what I just said there. We need safe road users. We had the other side of the room saying, no, humans are just going to continue to make mistakes. It's part of our DNA. People will fall asleep. They'll take risks. They'll do all of these things. we need to sort of try to get our head in a space of a philosophy where mistake making is part of the system and we manage and cater for those issues. All right, it's a big debate. Anyway, as happens in mediation, some sort of compromise. They put this square around it: alert and compliant road users. Now, that was pretty much, well, I don't even think New Zealand accepted this diagram, because New Zealand was on one side of that room with me, actually. And it was generally seen as a fail, because this goes against sort of some of the core fundamentals of the SAFE system. Okay, we want people to be alert and compliant and be well rested and really sharp and focused on what they're doing in the driving, riding, or walking task. But the reality is we know that they're not. And by putting that square around it, just gave this absolute get out clause for any death or serious injury that happens on the road network, because you can basically always find somebody was not alert or compliant. I've done fatality investigations on, well, over 200 crashes in my career in depth. Every one of them I can find if I want to. I mean, I did, but I can find a reason why we could blame a driver, a walker, or a rider. Somebody has done something wrong. Fallen asleep, dropped their coffee in their lap, turned around to look at the kids that are fighting in the back, gone a little bit too fast around the curve, missed a give way sign. And the list goes on. There's always something, right? But we don't progress anywhere by just saying that was your fault and you should not have fallen asleep. Okay? Well, we agree with that, but does that change the system? Does that improve the system? And the answer is really no in that blame mentality. So what we then had was general uniform. Okay, that was a bad decision to use that diagram. Then lots of jurisdictions started developing their own. And you will recognize some ones that have been around in New Zealand in the past and current ones. So let's jump into the current one that New Zealand uses as sort of a representation of this idea of the SAFE system. And, like with any of these sort of representations, you're trying to boil extremely complex concepts down to one particular thing. I actually really like the way this has been done for New Zealand, and I think that full credit to whoever your comms people are to be able to shape the wording around this. But let's have a look. We see some principles around the outside, and then we see some levers in the middle there. We've got a vision in the middle here, which is important. A New Zealand where no one is killed or seriously injured in road crashes. Okay, it doesn't say a New Zealand with no road crashes, because it's understood that things are going to happen out there, but nobody should be killed or seriously injured in those. So let's quickly look at these, and I won't spend long on them because I do encourage you to have a look into the strategy and have a flick through yourself. But we strengthen all parts of the road transport system. So it does recognize that achieving our objectives here is not going to be done with one element of the system only. We have to strengthen all parts of the system. We design for human vulnerability. Okay, amazingly put. But I spent a lot of time with road designers, engineers, and the one way that it seems to really resonate them to understand this concept is to say, right, when you're designing a new road or an intersection, you have to design to a certain flood level, like a 1 in 100 year flood. Okay. Or, maybe if you're thinking about lighting, you have to design to a specific lighting level, like a V3 lighting level, a certain lux level. Okay. We now have to design for human vulnerability in the same way. We know the forces that will create death and serious injury for humans, and we need to design things so that those forces are not there in those crash types. That's like core safe system engineering. And we'll really explore that, because you need to know, well, what are those forces? What are those crash types? What are the speeds? And then be able to understand how we can manage the system to within that envelope. We have a shared responsibility for improving road safety. And this is really to push back at anybody that is talking about pointing the finger at a road user for their mistakes or things that they've done, and not take responsibility as a system designer or a policy maker and a road manager or anything like that. Our actions are grounded in evidence and evaluated. So important, because road safety is one where everybody's an expert. You go to a barbecue, you tell them you work in road safety. Well, they'll tell you how things should be solved, and they're at an intersection, and the community will tell you exactly how to do this. Right? We need to be respectful of that, listen to that, understand where they're coming from, but we need to base our decision making across road safety on evidence. And we need to evaluate it so we've got that evidence. Now, this is even a really challenging and hard thing to do as an individual, because you have a set of experience that involves many, many years sometimes of driving the road network, walking the road network, riding the road network. Okay. And you've got a set of preconceived opinions on what is safe and what is not safe. And so to go to evidence-based is very, very important, even if your opinion is one thing. And that's a challenging thing to do. I'll give some examples of that shortly. Our road safety actions support health, well-being, and livable places. Genius way to go here to coattail on a community and government desire for healthier and more livable places and well-being of the community. Because safe system and the safety on our roads, it goes hand in hand with that. You create a safe system environment, you have a healthy and livable place in urban areas, and you have well-being for the community across the rest of the road network. We make safety a critical decision-making priority, and that's why we see it now, requirements for safe system audits in business case development in funding streams and the like, and requirements for any project, regardless of whether it's a safety project or not, having that safe system audit. We promote good choices but plan for mistakes. So we're basically saying, yeah, we're going to do everything we can to stop crashes happening, but we're going to manage them to within tolerable limits of forces when they do happen. So that's a quick rundown of the principles, and we'll be touching back on these as we go through this safe system audit process. But you can see there that there's ability to influence this and operationalize those principles through the infrastructure and management of speed, through the vehicles, through work-related road safety. That's a great lever for us to get in and start the ball rolling on changing the way the roads are used. So we do still acknowledge that the road users, there's more support that can be provided there for your road users making good choices and doing more appropriate things on the road, and general system management. So any questions popped in there by now, Marissa, before I jump into a completely non-road related analogy, which I've presented a few of you before, but it's so important in my mind to take this thinking. But Marissa, anything pop up?
Yeah, we have one question, Ken. How specific does designing for vulnerability get? Is it corner speeds or principles within the related guidance? And this person has also said, happy if this is covered later in the content.
Okay, well, it is a good question. So we continue to get more refined with that. So I'll give you a series of different crash types later in the course and some speeds and types of vehicles involved or types of road users involved. I may set a general threshold on the speeds that we believe you can have these crashes. How refined you get depends on how detailed an assessment you are wanting to do, because along the route, you'll get many varied instances of speed, and you can be very precise using some specific software that can give you forces and the like. But safe system audits generally are at a bit of a higher level than that and give a general indication. But I will delve into that. We'll do some practice of it. You've got a quiz focused around that as well to help solidify that learning.
Thanks, Ken. No other questions at the moment.
Okay. So the analogy I want to give is outside of road transport, and it's manufacturing of something, widgets. So safety culture is important to understand at a high level, because that essentially is what we're trying to change by operationalizing the safe system philosophy in New Zealand. So, there was a time where manufacturing was a very, I suppose, pathological safety culture, where back in the day, we'd see these kids using machines, but cleaning machines, and, people going into these highly unsafe areas, and workers having their arms ripped off and crushed, and all sorts of things happening. Everybody knew that it was dangerous, right? And they were told it was dangerous, and they were given some basic training to understand how to safely use these dangerous machines in this dangerous work environment. And then they said, you've got to protect yourself. You've got to be safe in there. So when you have an inherently unsafe system, and you push the responsibility of safety to an individual and their specific behaviors, that's pathological safety culture. We then elevate up to what we call a reactive safety culture, which is where those specific issues are occurring or reoccurring. We rectify them, and we change the system at that isolated location to remove the risk. Then we elevate to a calculating one, which is where the economists get involved traditionally, and they analyze overall, how much is the death and serious injury costing us in terms of lost productivity, lost production of widgets, and payouts to families, and those sorts of things. How much is that costing us, and how much would it cost for us to lessen the amount of that happening? So there was never really an acknowledgement of the human value, the ethical imperative there. It was simply, let's put dollar figures on everything. Let's put dollar figures on the humans, and let's put dollar figures on the capital investments required. And they would come up with BCRs, and off we went from that. Where we want to get to under this safe system is this proactive safety approach, where safety sets the precondition for widget production or car production or mobility, right? Where you demand a high level of safety, a very high level of safety, acknowledging human frailty and vulnerability and mistake making. All right, and you can then push widget production within that as much as you can. But if you go outside of that envelope, production stops until you're back in that envelope. And then you need to heavily invest in maintaining that culture. So that's maintaining the culture, maintaining the assets, and yeah, that is like safety culture across everything, not just roads. But you can immediately see the sort of analogy of where we're setting with the roads and the management of the transport system in New Zealand, or the road transport system in New Zealand, where we do have a lot of pathological safety culture. We have some reactive and some calculating, and small elements of proactive. So it's kind of, I don't know, you could draw some sort of bell curve associated with this, but it'd be, somewhat skewed to pathological because we are licensing people. We're pushing people out to an inherently unsafe system and telling them that they have to protect themselves out there. It's their responsibility to be safe. Yeah, some great examples of proactive stuff in more recent times, and it's credit to what's happening in New Zealand. But we're seeing widespread deployment of 30-kilometre-per-hour school speed zones and low speed areas across local governments. We're seeing continuous barrier systems on major roads. We're not waiting there for specific people to be killed. So that's, well out of reactive. And, if you drilled in under traditional methodologies of benefit cost, you probably wouldn't have those as discrete investments within new projects. But it's an understanding that, we have an ethical imperative here. Now, some people might be saying, well, hang on, you got to calculate, you got to work out what to do with your money. Well, yes and no. I give the simple analogy of a high-rise building, and it's got balconies. And we don't do a BCR calculation on whether or not we're going to put railings on the balconies, do we? That's not like, it is an absolute set that we have, set mandate that we have to put railings on the balconies. Nobody questions that, but we still do get questions on a high-speed road, a high-speed new road. Why are we putting these barriers all the way down it? And people should just stay on the road. Well, that's people should just stay on the balcony. Okay, we understand it very clearly when it's a balcony, and the drop and the forces. When people leave the road, the forces are equivalent. Like, forces of leaving the road, hitting a tree, or even rolling over in a cleared area, they're up there with falling off, 3, 4, 5, 6-story buildings. But we just haven't quite got our head around seeing it that way. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that analogy out there. We're pushing to try to get a holistic system down this end. It can be absolutely it can be so hard to get your head into that space when we've been living our whole lives down here. Like, that's it. And we've been doing all of our professional work down in that space. So how do we start to transition? Well, we have these discussions. We start looking at other industries, what they've had successes, how they've moved systems. And yeah, it can be helpful. But let's pop up a quiz for a little bit of interaction there, and I'll give I'll give you some more questions as we go. But I reckon we should have a quiz here just to consolidate a little bit of that thinking. You remember, you're not marked on anything that happens live in the course. It's only afterwards where you'll get similar questions where you're marked on. Okay. Which of the following is not a key principle of the safe system? And I've slightly adjusted the words from exactly what there was in that to see if you're getting the concept or not. Then there's a second question, which I have not given you any information on because I'm about to talk about it. But anybody, or a few of you, are at a distinct advantage because I ask this a lot in courses. And I know a few other people have taken on, I've given my slides to a few other people and they've taken this on as well, just as a way to have a think about stuff. So have a guess. We don't even know who guesses what, so you feel free to just guess. Remember, I'll give you a stretch break in 15 minutes or so. Okay. 3, 2, 1. All right, Marissa, let's end that. Let's share results. Okay, we got a group that's nicely listening and understanding concepts here, because aiming for no mistakes on the road system, that is not what we're sort of going for with the safe system, because we realize that that's an impossibility with humans. Humans make mistakes. Okay, they're going to do that on the road. They're going to do that when they're walking, when they're riding, but what we want to do is minimize and manage mistakes. That's where we're at. And the next question we had there is Usain Bolt. What speed did he cross the finish line? So most people have gone with 34 or 44. I think those doing 34 did some back of envelope calculations on speed and distance, but maybe didn't account for the fact that he started at 0 speed and had to accelerate up, because the answer is 44 kilometers per hour, crossing the finish line. Now, why on earth am I asking that as a question in a road safety course? Well, I want you to imagine that we park a Toyota Camry, a 2016 Toyota Camry at the end of Usain Bolt's lane, and he runs down there and he's traveling at 44 kilometers per hour and he hits it. Will he survive that? Well, the answer is yes. He's built like a fridge. He'll survive. He'll survive that. Pick any of us mere mortals up, fling us at the car at 44 kilometers an hour. We get into sketchy territory as to our survivability. There's a general correlation between your running speed, maximum running speed, flat out, and your ability to withstand then the force of running into a tree or a wall. Now, the car's going to be a little bit better because it's got some softer areas. Well, it's all relative, but softer areas. But running into a tree, you're kind of finding your threshold of biomechanical tolerance at your maximum running speed. Give it a go if you want. Run as fast as you can at a tree, and you will survive. You'll mess yourself up in the short term, but you should survive. Now, we need to sort of unpack that for lots of different crash types, lots of different road users, understand the fact that Usain Bolt's vulnerability to physical force is a lot different to an 80-year-old's vulnerability to physical force, but they're both members of the community we need to protect in transport. So we use some curves, we use some research and evidence from around the world, and we continue to get more and more information in this. But I like to use some simple curves here to say that we've got collision speed down the bottom. This is speed of impact. Don't think about speed limit, just think about physics here. It's actually biomechanics, but what speed is the crash happening? And then what's the chance it's going to result in death for somebody in the community? So we've got a general scatter, and this is a trend line for crashes that happened. So we see 10, 20, around 30 kilometers an hour is things go really bad really quickly when a car, passenger vehicle, hits a pedestrian. We start to see a huge increase in the amount of our community killed in that incident after 30 kilometers an hour. There's a great man. He's sort of up there, but we're built to withstand some force. That sort of stuff, we can survive. He was okay. Well, he broke a few ribs, but that kind of stuff, recover, lead a normal, healthy life. Okay, forces beyond that starts to kill, starts to have injuries that people do not recover from. He came back and won the gold medal the next year. So we need this for lots of different crash types, because it's not just vehicles hitting pedestrians, which are crashes that are killing and seriously injuring New Zealanders. We know side impact crashes, and we have bullet vehicle speed. So that's the bullet vehicle. The one that does the damage in a crash is labeled bullet vehicle. Target vehicle is the one that's where the occupants are being killed and seriously injured. So at a right angle, and the angle is important, okay? The angle is important. Right angle, we know that at about 50 kilometers per hour, bullet vehicle speed is where things go really bad really quickly after that. So up at 60, we've doubled, easily more than doubled the risk, and 70, it's gone way up from that. And head-on crashes where both vehicles are bullet vehicles and both are target vehicles. We see 70 kilometer per hour speed of each vehicle, speed of this vehicle, speed of this vehicle at 70 kilometers an hour is where things start to go really bad, really, really quickly. So closing speed would be 140 kilometers an hour. The force on the individual occupant is the equivalent of running into a brick wall at 70 kilometers per hour, because it's about deceleration. And we have two vehicles, hypothetically, same weight, same speed, hit directly front on. That doesn't actually happen out there in that configuration. Well, very occasionally it does, but the bulk of the time it's slightly offset and all sorts of wild things are happening. But 140 kilometer per hour closing speed, but each vehicle goes from 70 to 0, and that deceleration is at 70 kilometers an hour. Throughout the course, we put these little buttons here in your PDF. Okay, and if you haven't got your PDF of the slides yet, you will get them in the learning management system, because you can download them, and you can click on that and you can get a little bit more information about this specific slide. Sometimes we link to a video, and sometimes there's just a bit more written text or something else that you can have a bit more of a read if you want. So again, there's more crash types than just those three that I presented. So this diagram is something that was presented to start to help us understand more crash types, the speeds that could be generally tolerable. But you see that this is a sort of color spectrum, isn't it? It's saying that, well, we can have crashes out there that we're not sure whether it's going to be really, really bad or just bad. And so how do we make those calls? And you'll see here numbers, and we use numbers in the first part of a safe system audit. The first part of a safe system audit is a bit of a quantification of alignment with safe system principles. And I'll use these numbers in a future module, and then you'll use them, you'll put them into practice. But you can see here pedestrians and heavy vehicles. You can see head-on car-to-car crashes, which are one of the sort of crash types we can get the most sort of speed out of, running into poles and trees and the like. So I just wanted to show you that now, because I'll come back to it. It's a really important slide and something you'll be using. I think it might have even made it into your little packs that you might have received by now. Hopefully, fingers crossed, you've got a little bit of a goodie pack to help you along your journey. I'm going to give this little analogy, and then I think I'll give you a little task to do. And the task is just about consolidating our thinking at a high philosophical level at this stage. Lots of Wallies in the first few slides, hey? Okay, so traditional road safety thinking has done a lot of crash causation. And it's been going for about 60 years of crash causation studies, in-depth crash causation studies. What I mean by crash causation study is to analyze a bunch of crashes, and we see them, thousands of crashes sometimes analyzed using very sophisticated research methodologies, big root cause analysis diagrams, really exceptionally intelligent people doing this research. And their aim is to sort of understand more about the causes of crashes. And they produce, like any good researcher, a big 400-page report, and it's all very exciting. And you sort of boil it down, and it ends up having the driver error. Well, in this 2003 study, it was about drivers, but it could be, there's been other studies where it's road user error being the hugely dominant cause of crashes. I think the Kimbler study was 93% of crashes was solely driver error related. And that the road contributes a very small amount, and the vehicle malfunction and vehicle specifics are a really tiny amount. There's a bit of overlap between some of these. Now, why I hate this diagram. It really is the bane of my existence. And it's not because it's wrong. As I say, these are brilliant researchers, and it's solid. It's solid work. But it's what is done with that diagram and that information, because that diagram and information then filters into people's hands, and they say, well, we know the biggest cause of crashes. We will invest all of our time and effort into changing that particular aspect. So let's change the driver. Let's make them better. Let's give them more skills. Let's give them more education. Let's do those things. The issue with that is that the driver, the human, is far and away the hardest thing to change. Okay. Yes, change can happen. It's massively hard and long term. It is unsustainable because we keep getting new humans. They keep getting new drivers, and we have to do this all again, right? So we have this huge challenge of doing that, where and a lot of it just doesn't work. So what we want to do is actually say, no, okay, let's alter this system. Okay, let's use the infrastructure, let's use the vehicles, let's use the speeds and everything we've got, so that people can still make mistakes. Not that we're going to encourage it, we're still going to try and minimize it, but they don't result in death or serious injury. We still need to, I've taken this from Austroads, they had these little bits of driver excess and driver inexperience outside the system. They should be fully inside the system because they're just system errors in their own right, but they're more complicated system errors. But this just promotes traditional road safety thinking. We need to move to a systems-based way of thinking. And I suppose one thing to understand within that is that errors in the road transport system are complex, but you can start to categorize them, as the Centre for Automotive Safety Research did in one of their big, juicy 400-page studies, as we like to talk about. Slips, lapses, mistakes, and unintentional violations. They are essentially, to boil it down, generally, people going about their daily lives, not doing anything overtly intentional to go out and break rules and cause all sorts of trouble on the roads. They're generally trying to just go about their lives using vehicles to do that. Deliberate violations are a more complex and a harder one. They're a harder one to understand and they're so intertwined with social challenges. We see a real correlation between sociodemographics and these deliberate violations. But if we draw that line there, what we know is that somewhere in the 70% of death and serious injury on our road network sits above that line. Got somewhere around 30%. Now that changes jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but not by major ways. You might be in a particular jurisdiction within New Zealand where it's up at 35% is deliberate violation, or you might be in some areas where it's less. But generally, that's what it is. These are these are just complete system failures, right? These are system failures, but they're, as I say, far more complex system failures because we're dealing with things and operations that are outside of the norm in system use, if that makes sense. I'm not saying that they are like we shouldn't be addressing this under the safe system. We absolutely should, but it will be a very different way to address these. Okay, so I've talked a fair bit there, and I think it's time for you to get a coffee and sort of try to consolidate a little bit of that thinking. If it's new to you, this sort of thinking and this discussion, you've probably been overwhelmed. Some of you are getting this as a refresh, and so you'll be fairly comfortable with it. But what I'll get you to do is do this little mix and match. And it's a consolidation of thinking. Ostrode's presented it. And it's really saying, okay, we're going from this traditional approach and thinking to road safety to this safe system approach. And we're just going to try to match up the numbers. We'll do this with a poll, and you can just simply take, okay, so there has been this, victim blaming culture. It's not, people don't say they're victim blaming, but that's when you critically analyze what they're doing. And we say, well, we're going from that culture and we're trying to move to, whatever you decide, multifaceted system with interacting elements. Some of these could go to multiple spots, so don't get overstressed about it. Just use it to consolidate your thinking. And I'm going to give you 4.5 minutes to do this and grab a coffee and have a stretch. And the poll has now popped up on your screen, so you can see each one of those and where it could go. And we'll get back into it in 4.5 minutes. Give it another 30 seconds, people to have their last guesses and get back to their seats. And we'll keep moving on. I've got a fair bit to get through, and I want to give Marissa a little bit of time at the end to just walk people through the learning management system, point you at the little quiz you've got to do, which will be the one that you're marked on, and this one just for a bit of consolidation of thinking, as I mentioned. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and end results. Okay, well, we've got lots of I've got a bit of uniformity in there. I'm going to remove that. I'm just going to do it on the screen because I think it's a little bit easier to do. Now, I'm giving you what Ostrode's came up with. As I say, I think some of them could have gone through anyway, but victim blaming to recognizing human error, minimizing its consequence, and that shared responsibility. There has been a lot of emphasis on road user education and compliance. It's not going to stop, but we recognize that more effort to create that forgiving system. Focus on crash reduction. So enhanced focus on consequence, especially severe injury minimization. So 4 pillars action independently, as what was talked about a lot in the past. It was talked about these 4 pillars, and then people would work on those specific ones. We understand now it's more that multifaceted system with interacting elements optimized jointly as this interaction. And of course, the last one, mobility safety balance, which was just saying, let's find the the amount of the community killed and seriously injured that's generally accepted as appropriate for moving people and goods around. And yeah, we want to alter that to say, no, we're safe. We're going to make sure people are safe, and then we'll move stuff around at a maximum within that. So here's another little analogy, and I think it's a nice one for how the SAFE system comes together. There's a video in the learning management system, which Marissa will point you at, but let's just have a little chat about this. So a wire rope safety barrier system in a narrow flush median. So fairly new project that's gone in, and lots of these sort of popping up around New Zealand. So some of you have had involvement in these. What are some of the challenges that people face when they're trying to plan, design, and then get these projects approved and then get them on the ground? Type them into the chat. Some of the challenges you think they might face with these types of jobs, going from a road with one lane in each direction, or sometimes an overtaking lane, to now separating it with a barrier system in a flush, narrow median like this. Okay, well, we've got one answer in, access to properties. So I'm going to give a prize because that was quick. So I wonder if whoever that was, J something, I've got an initial in my username, J. So we've got access to properties. Okay, now they're coming in thick and fast now. So yes, a lot of people seem to have had this. So yeah, funding, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, so again, like access, crossing, if you live on one side, how do you go the other direction? Funding, corridors, yeah, reduced overtaking opportunities sometimes. Different specific design constraints is a good one. Ghost lines of old line marking. So that's a very particular construction challenge there. Matthew had an interesting one. They're more maintenance. I think that's probably, let's give a prize there for that consideration. That one comes up actually quite a bit. And for me, it's a real, it's an interesting one. Like sometimes we won't do safety improvements because of their impact on maintenance, which I find a strange concept, but it is one thing we need to work our way through. Emergency vehicle maneuverability, Kieran. Let's give a prize there because that one is an amazing one that's popped up. I'm not picking the biggest ones. I'm just picking weird and interesting ones, or ones that I sort of go, oh yeah, that's a really good one to bring up. Oh, gee, this is a good group. And again, Jay Andrew has come up with another beauty around the barrier system and its deflection and the working width of the barrier system, which I'll elaborate on a little bit more. Thank you for all of those. I just wanted to see where you're coming back with. It sounds like you're very aware of some of these challenges. That one around the deflection of the system is an interesting one. Sort of, these barriers deflect when they're struck. The posts break away, the wires capture the vehicle. They have some set deflections. And this one just happens that it'll deflect a little bit into the oncoming lane. That delayed this project for about a year with people saying, well, you can't do it because it's not meeting the required deflection area. So, and you come back and you say, let's have a logical look at that. You're saying you can't put that barrier system in there because it doesn't quite meet that. But you're willing to leave it as a white line separating high-speed road users. It's just ludicrous. Anyway, anyway, that's, we could debate that for a long time. But the reason I bring this up is that everything we will try to do that actually changes the fundamentals of our road system to make them safer is a big change to the way people have seen the road, the way they've operated often in it as a professional for a long time. And we need to keep working on that. This one was a fascinating one, a lot of those issues that came up, and finally got in, and then, of course it got hit and needed maintenance. But in this one, they got a phone call from one of the people involved in this incident who was actually thanking them for it, believing it saved their life, and they managed to video that. So have a look at that video in the learning management system. It's a real nice example of safe system to me. Somebody had fallen asleep and left their lane, as many people do, and the barrier system being there just made it, everybody walked away, rather than what inevitably would have been a death or serious injury had the barrier system not been there, which, a lot of people didn't want. You go, okay, well, there's safe system in action. So let me just cover up a few more of these specific elements, talk about a few different things. I want to just briefly touch on what the vehicles are doing, because vehicle safety is sometimes seen as, okay, well, the vehicles will solve all these issues. Vehicle technology, these advanced safety features we're seeing in vehicles. Now, vehicles are coming along leaps and bounds, and they're doing really well, and we're seeing some amazing safety features and technology putting into vehicles. But we've got a couple of issues there. There's a big lag in the what we see on the roads of New Zealand in terms of vehicles and what is, the newest cutting edge thing off the production line. So we've got a massive, massive lag there. We call it fleet turnover. It's very long. So we've got that. Then even the some of the best car safety features coming off the production line have limitations. Of course, they're going to market them like they're the best thing since sliced bread, but they have limitations. Take even what we'd give as a 5-star currently ANCAP safety rated crash worthiness on frontal impact is a 64 km/h crash. It's offset. It's an offset crash, but it's done at 64 km/h. I'll let you guess what the side impact pole test is, and I'll give the prize to the closest. So this is the vehicle is slid into a pole at a certain speed, and I want you to guess the speed, and the dummy can't have forces subject to it that exceed a level 3 serious injury, which is essentially an acquired brain injury you're going to hold for the rest of your life, or worse, death, but you get 5 stars. So they do this test at a certain speed, and then if the dummy doesn't get an acquired brain injury, gets 5 stars for that specific aspect. So we've got some guesses in there on speed. Good, okay. So we've got a variety of speeds. I think I've got to give it to 2 people there because we're splitting the difference between Monica and, again, Jayandrel, because, and they were the first in with very close ones. It's 32 km/h. So that's, that's pretty slow, isn't it? In the sense of the speed we drive around the road, the speed we see side impact crashes with trees, with power poles, with other fixed source hazards. So 32 kilometers an hour. We're not. I do that to show you that the vehicles still have a long way to go. Now, admittedly, we're getting some safety features that help out with this in the sense of electronic stability control, auto emergency braking are starting to adjust the vehicle before these crashes, start to try to lessen the chance of it, slow the speeds down before any of these crashes occur. But we're very far from getting things at a good level there. We have pedestrians and cyclists included in the crash testing. I talked about Usain Bolt like hitting the vehicle and there are softer parts of the vehicle. Well, they are now designed as softer parts, as in the bonnet will pop up as it strikes a pedestrian. So there's some cushioning, or an airbag will come out over the bonnet. I mean, these are things to acknowledge that we're trying to not just protect the people inside the vehicle, but we're trying to protect anything that the vehicle might strike as well, pedestrian, cyclists, people on scooters, or anything like that. And of course, we go, you know, in our minds to a future where there are no steering wheels or pedals because the car's doing it all. Like we have this sort of wonderful vision, but the time it will take for us to get into this space is long. You can't get straight answers out of any of the absolute world's best around this. And they're very varying in what they say. The technology is there to sort of have one of these putting around the foreshore. But we've got, you know, even if the technology was currently good enough to have these deployed, which it's not, like you can do it in quarantined areas, and, you know, sometimes in specific, you know, you might hear, oh, Waymo's running driverless taxis in San Francisco or something. And you go, okay, well, that's interesting. So we're out there. Well, yes, it's very geo-fenced in where they're running them and what they're doing and the like. But the technology is pretty good. But you've got to turn over the whole fleet. Then you've got to get people willing to give this. Then you've got to change something like in New Zealand, 14,000 pieces of legislation or something insane, as in clauses of legislation that need to be altered. And then you've got to understand that even when we get these, we've still got interactions with pedestrians and cyclists, and we've got to manage all of this. And then we've got to set a system around these to ensure that these are safe. So, yeah, we can't sit on our hands and just say, yep, Google and Waymo and all others are going to solve all our issues and we don't have to do anything in road safety. No, very much. We still need to create this safe system, and these will just be a user of the safe system. Probably as far as I need to elaborate on that. But, well, actually, it's not. I'll play these little videos because you see vehicles, braking as they approach. And there's one. Ooh, we knocked their leg off. But that, is actually somewhat a success because the Mercedes there, the driver didn't brake, and the vehicle decided, oh, they're not going to brake, and we're going to hit this. So let's put on the brakes and change this from hitting at maybe 35 kilometers an hour down to what is a very small 5 kilometer per hour or so hit. So we're going to get this massive severity reduction from some of these features as they transition in. We talk about the levels of autonomy. There's 5 levels of autonomy with some sub-levels of automation within that. Most of the vehicle fleet has some level of automation. We will continue to give drivers the impression that they're driving the vehicle and in control of the vehicle. The vehicle will just take over when it decides it needs to. And we'll see a lot of safety come in that way. Anyway, it's not really the purpose of today to talk about vehicle safety technology. How does it interact with the safe system audit? Well, yes, we're starting to more and more think about these vehicles and what they're doing and what they're looking for as we analyze infrastructure projects and designs. It's very much an emerging field. Happy if anybody is playing in that space. We've done a couple of really interesting studies for those shuttle vehicles without drivers and the routes that they're taking and what design features of the infrastructure are requirements for those vehicles, what are scenarios and situations which will be problematic for them. There's a whole variety of specifics around that. And I think over the next sort of 30, 40, 50 years, we will more and more be doing road design and road management for these vehicles. Anyway, it's an interesting space. Marissa, we got a question might have popped in. I can't see it, but
Yeah, can just on that, is there an ANCAP test for rollover?
I don't think there is. There's some requirement. Yeah, now you're testing my detailed knowledge of the ANCAP testing protocol. Maybe Marissa, take a note of that. I know who will know. Tanner will know for sure, and he'll be able to tell us on that. So we'll find out and report back next time.
Sure, will do.
Let's just look at speed, because you notice speed was into like being talked about a lot in what I started out with there. Just a couple of reminders on speed. Speed's not a linear relationship with crash force. So, it's not like if you drive 10 kilometers faster, you're going to crash at 10 kilometers faster in most situations. You're going to crash a lot more than that. So, like, here's one. So at 60 kilometers an hour, at 45 meters, it's just a touch, probably like that little video of the vehicle just touching that, knocking that leg off. Go up 10 kilometers an hour, 70, it's going to be a 46 kilometer per hour strike. So it's not linear, the relationship there, which takes a little bit of time to get your head around if it's new to you. But it's associated with reaction time and braking distance. If you overlay on that the curves I initially showed you about biomechanical tolerance of the human body, what we're saying there and what we see is this big magnified change at different speeds, and especially as we get fatal and serious injury. So for fatal crashes, we see a fourth power relationship to change in speed, and a third power relationship for serious injuries. So what that means in sort of very simple terms is if we can get small changes in travel speed, we will see our biggest changes, and they'll be big in terms of the amount of death and serious injury. And then we see sort of other injuries coming in after that. So small changes in speed can be really beneficial. And obviously you can imagine big changes in speed will be hugely beneficial. And I sort of have this little memey thing to sort of try to explain that, where we see small changes in travel speed, it magnifies to pretty decent changes in stopping distance, assuming that the driver does manage to interact in this event at some point. We see a larger change then in impact speed, larger change in the energy, because we use our basic kinetic energy equations, which squares things. And in the end, we see then a large change in the probability of death and serious injury. So that's kind of how you can think about magnifying the end outcome, which is protection of our community from changes in travel speed. And when I was updating the Austra's Guide to Road Safety Part 3, which is speed and speed management, recently, or a couple of years ago, popped in this diagram because the Europeans use it quite a bit, in the sense that they say, well, if you know your biomechanical tolerances of the human body, which we generally do, we're always trying to refine that, and you know your vehicle fleet, you know your road infrastructure, and you know your road users, you just filter it through whatever is the appropriate speed, and you've got a safe transport system. Now, speed there, it could be speed limit, could be, other ways to do it, but that's it. Like, we can have really high speeds out there as long as we've got the appropriate infrastructure and vehicles. Road users to a degree, we can have very safe environments. I mean, that's what racetracks are. They're a safe system, pretty much. And we see lots of crashes and things happen, and people walk away. Occasionally, there's something that goes wrong, and they treat it very seriously. And there's a whole lot of system changes that happen if something does go into the serious injury or fatal. But a road public transport system, public roads, is not the case. But we can influence the outcomes here through infrastructure and or speed limits. We know that if we explain why a speed limit is in place, it can assist with acceptance and compliance, and you can do that in a variety of ways. Happy to talk to people about that. And vulnerable road users is generally well accepted, and we have this wonderful opportunity with that really elegant part of the New Zealand strategy, which talks about livable places, health and well-being. It's all integrated with active transport. So the urban area has this wonderful opportunity for getting us safe system speeds through speed limits and through other infrastructure initiatives without as much public pushback. We're going to get challenges out in those higher speed environments with longer distance to travel, which have inappropriate speeds. And how we go about that, I think it needs a lot more work and continued effort. I know there's lots of progress in the New Zealand space in terms of speed limits and the like, and some transformative stuff happening. So I think also one thing we should think about as we sort of work through trying to create safer speed environments, we can target some of this in a bit more of a specific way than we have in the past. We used to be very static with how we did it. We know the things like the RIOs, the rural intersection activated warning signs, or speed limit signs like this one you can see here, which activates when vehicles are coming out of the side road or turning into the side road, and then drops away when it's not there, when there's not somebody waiting to turn out or the like. That's utilizing technology in a good way, and I think the public's a bit more accepting of it, and we're targeting the time of risk, which is kind of neat. Okay, so let's jump in and what I was talking about there was just general sort of safe system theory, safe system philosophy. Some of you are absolute experts in that already, okay, and you got a bit of a refresh. You might have picked up something new. Some of you are getting your head around that still, but certainly New Zealand has a wonderful wealth of resources available on safe system philosophy, and some really great stuff on Waka Kotahi's website, and get in there and just search safe system. There's little education modules. There's lots of documentation you can have a read of, and to continue to understand the philosophy of it. What we're going to really jump into now, moving forward, is taking that philosophy and really operationalizing it in decision-making around infrastructure projects. And the way that this has been done in the past was associated with a road safety audit. And then in more recent years, a safe system assessment. And that is the Austrade's Guide to Road Safety Part 6, which is road safety audit. It sets a process for road safety auditing. It was updated in 2022. I was on that project as well. And we tried to integrate a lot more safe system thinking into that document. Anybody who's ever worked on an Austroads project, it's like the ultimate in herding cats in terms of the different jurisdictions wanting to do their own thing, and you're trying to harmonize that and get everybody on the same page. We progressed a lot of stuff with that. We couldn't get some stuff over the line. The Safe System Assessment Framework in 2016 came out. So it was another document doing some similar things to auditing, right? And New Zealand had the Road Safety Audit Procedure for Projects, which was 2013 document that had been sort of sitting there. Now, the New Zealanders on this project wanted more. They wanted more. And, I'll tell you now, the Western Australians didn't. And a bit of compromise was made, and anyway, that was released. But what New Zealand ended up doing was taking some of their existing stuff, a lot of this information and process, and this, and combining them to what is termed the safe system audit, and the guidelines are there. Now, I think this is a nice step. I think we've eliminated some red tape out of infrastructure projects, which was duplicate and double up and just not needed. I think the process is pretty good. And that's the process we'll be taking you through in this course. But because of where it's come from, there's a lot of that in there. There's a lot of that in there. And there's some of that in there. So it's not going to be absolutely new concepts to a lot of you. But I think the way it's been pulled together is something good. So it's really just a safe system assessment followed by a road safety audit packaged as a safe system audit. And so we really do get you to do a safe system assessment, do a road safety audit within this one document. There's good reason behind, this forced requirement. There are other ways that these things could have been achieved, but I do like this way. So let's get into a few specifics here. A safe system audit is not a standards review. So that's a common misunderstanding. As soon as you use the term audit, people start to think, oh, well, we're just going to check, are we conforming with the standards? And that's not what it is. We know standards don't necessarily equal safety. A good starting point to think about, but you've got to be a bit more than that. So here's an example where we've had something designed in a new road build, and it met standards, it met guidelines. The barrier system was there, good offset, but very early after it was opened, a truck left the road, hit the barrier system, breached the barrier system, hit the overhead gantry, driver was killed. I think in this circumstance, we're lucky that the gantry didn't come down, and then more people would have been killed, as in traveling on the carriageway there. But it shows you there that, brand new road, $1 billion plus road, built to, checked for standards, but we need people thinking holistically about safety. That barrier system would never have been expected to contain that vehicle. This is the test vehicle if it was a test level 4 barrier system. So, those are the kind of, bits and pieces we're looking at, and we're questioning. Okay, it meets standards, but is the way that this going to operate and things that could go wrong, are we thinking about that as well? So, standards, you can meet standards and have unsafe situations due to either that standard not being appropriate for that context. You could have that standard is combining with other standards, and the combination of them make unsafe practices. You can have sometimes that there are no standards to something. It's innovative, it's new, or these situations have never been thought about within the, within what we're doing. So whole lot of reasons there why, just meeting standards is not safety. And that's why we do these safe system audits. Otherwise, we just do compliance with standard audits or compliance with standard checks. So here's another example. We've got a major new subdivision, and we've got a new intersection being built. And here we go. We've got this new signalized intersection, and you can see a vehicle in that lane traveling along, say, 60 kilometers an hour, comes through here, and whoa, I'm in a turn lane. What? It's called a trap lane. Great naming of a road safety issue. It's called a trap lane. And we know we're going to have sideswipe rear end crashes around this location. Okay, this is discouraged in Australia, but it's not to say that, you can never have this. Okay, it's discouraged. And again, we might be picking these sorts of things out and trying to point them out within our safe system audits. Now, let's have a quick look, and I'll have to be fairly quick on this. I'm going to play a video. It's going to have a crash, and I want you to tell me, what do you think some of the some of the factors in the road environment that may have contributed to the chance that this crash happened, the likelihood of crash. So we're looking at some dash cam footage. We're looking at the back, and we'll move to the front in a second. And so I've played a couple of times. Pop it into the chat where you think some of the factors are that in the road environment that may have influenced this crash. Oh, sorry. Now, this was one that I used in a previous course as an example. So some of you might have pondered this one before, but wow, seen some great answers coming in here. So I think, I mean, so many great answers. Actually, I could give everybody a prize here, Marissa. You'd run out of prizes pretty quick. So interestingly, a couple of people, perceiving it as a roundabout. It's not actually a roundabout, which is an interesting one. Yeah, probably a proof you can never really do anything from street view or videos because you don't get that actual feel for it. Or maybe it is something that would confuse some drivers. Am I approaching a roundabout? Am I approaching something else? I got lots of commentary around the approach being very straight. We've got sight distance ones. We've got signs being blocked. We've got commentary on the line marking and the signage. And we've got the width of the intersection. We've got some other specifics. This is really good, really good. And I want to unpack a little bit about that. And some other comments that did come in, which were around that sort of see-through effect, that visual deceit. And that's a really important one here. I think as safe system auditors, we are going to analyze what's causing the chance of a crash to increase. And then we'll talk shortly about the severity of the crash. But this one, as the vehicle approaches this intersection, there is a see-through effect. It's a little hard to tell from the video, but a continuation of power poles and lights through an intersection like this where priority is not given is a very big influencer on overshoot crashes. So that's where a vehicle doesn't recognize the intersection is there or doesn't recognize that they have to give priority and overshoot the intersection. The others restart. Restart crashes are when they've made they know the intersection's there and then they make a bad choice. They don't necessarily come to a stop, but if they do, they restart. So that's a huge influence of that see-through effect. And you, as a safe system auditor, you'd be looking for that to try and understand the likelihood of crashes. All those other things you've been pointing out in there are very good, and you certainly, as safe system auditors, would be looking at that as well. The signs, the lines, the sight line, sight distances, the width, and all of these. One of the biggest factors we know on these sort of things is the geometry of the intersection. As I say, the straight through, the width, and the see-through effect. They're going to be very big big influences in the chance of crash happening. Then the vehicle crashes, doesn't it? And we see that that pole breaks away on impact. And that is, that's interesting. Is that a deficient engineering design of the pole? Is it a good thing? Well, I think that the decision to make that a pole that breaks away, which we would term generally a frangible pole, has probably saved the life or prevented serious injury for this vehicle that was just traveling along, minding their own business, because the distance that they've dissipated energy there, as opposed to an abrupt stop, is huge in terms of kinetic energy management. Now, I talked there about overshoot and restart crashes, so I just popped those as definitions in there for your reference. Important to think about intersection crashes in those two perspectives. But that slip-based pole is one way that things could be done. Breaks away on impact, shears, manages energy. Brilliant design. And here you go. You can see one down there, down State Highway 3, struck and with such force that went through a reassurance sign there. All the occupants survived this. So the speed that must have been traveling at, but to think there, if you use a rigid pole. So it's management of energy. It's some good energy management thinking. And as, say, system auditors, we look at detailed design sometimes. We understand where are the poles, what types of poles are they using? Are they frangible? Are they slip-based? Are they in areas where they're not going to fall onto pedestrians or the like? Because these sorts of areas, you don't use slip-based poles, because if they fall, they're going to strike pedestrians, wires, all sorts of trouble. So you'd use in these cases rigid poles, or this one, which is what we call an impact absorbing pole. Now, I'm just giving you examples here. These are not, covering all the issues you need to think about as a safe system auditor, but they're examples of the kind of things we're looking for. A couple of videos there of the difference between an impact absorbing pole, which you'll see in the video playing now, and then the next one will be a slip-based pole, just in their function. You can see that one sort of stays in its spot, takes a bit of the force of that vehicle leaving the road. Interesting choice to use an impact absorbing pole there. I would have probably used a slip-based pole, but again, I don't know exactly where that is and the specifics of it, so I can't give exact design reasons. But that one you can see breaks away as a traditional slip-based pole there. And audit findings within this, where they're going to fall if you're looking at a design, that's one consideration. If you're looking at post-opening audits or the like, you're just checking that the slip plane is the right height, because vehicles can snag on those. But the Safe System Audit Guidelines are a really good document. We've popped a copy into the Learning Management System, but of course freely available on Wakakatahi website. It talks about a safe system audit being a formal, robust technical assessment of transport project. It's done by independent qualified teams, thinks about the safety of all people, takes into account safe system principles. And it is not a review of compliance with standards, right? Definitions in there, you can have a read of it. I'll talk through those in a little bit more detail. I just want to jump through. I'll talk about all of those things, independence, and I'll talk about, what is being qualified mean, all road users and safe system principles. But you can do these safe system audits at a variety of stages within a project. The concept level, preliminary design, detailed design, or, just as it's being opened. The concept level feasibility ones, they're usually these sort of big projects. You're not given a lot of detail. You're thinking about how people from up here are going to get down here, and what sort of interchanges have we got, and what are the speeds vehicles will be coming into these areas. lots of big picture planning type things. Then you get into more detail, sometimes on a survey base, sometimes on an aerial image, and you're getting more detail and you're understanding how all road users are going to use this. What things are they going to misunderstand? Then you get into the detailed design, and you'll get everything. You'll get long sections, cross sections, you'll get pavement plans, you'll get line marking plans, you'll get drainage plans. That's a lot of technical information that you're trying to understand and trying to then predict how people are going to use it, and what mistakes they're going to make, and what the severity of those mistakes are. That one is really important to have some very technically minded people in the team. You do this in teams. So even if you're not somebody who spends their life with these sort of technical drawings, you're able to contribute to this by asking logical questions, understanding basic safe system principles, and getting involved. Pre-opening stage here. I think this is Wakatahi Expressway. Waikato Expressway, Wakatahi project. This is just before it opens, and you're doing a check. How is it? Has everything been put in well? Are there any glaring issues out there? Pre-opening stage or post-opening stage, usually for brownfield sites, being they're kind of done with live traffic anyway. Anybody see the issue there? Or see a issue there? I think Josh is. I'll give it to Josh, who's sort of first in there, trying to quickly go left, right, left. Left turning arrow here with an ability to go straight through here. So you want to pick up those things. It's surprising, actually, those things pop up more frequently than you would like. And so there's a bit of that check happening. We also have the ability to do what we call thematic audits, which is thinking at a particular road user theme, having that in extra focus on them, and having those types of road users involved in the audit process. So cycling audit, pedestrian audit, motorcycle audit. I'll talk you through these as we go through those different road users, specifically with different modules. So I rushed a little bit at the end there because I did want to give Marissa time to take you through the learning management system. And I'll also just check in on the chat there. And if you've got any specific questions, pop them in the Q&A. I will take what I've presented so far, and I will elaborate and dig in further. It was a bit of an introductory session, but hopefully you got a few things out of it. Over to you, Marissa. Take us to the learning management system.
Thanks, Ken. And just before I do that, we do have a response in regards to the question around the ANCAP rollover crash test. Mm-hmm. Tanner has replied and said, we do not have a rollover. ANCAP do not have a rollover crash test. This is because we do not know the exact cause of injuries in rollover crashes, thus cannot develop a rollover crash test protocol. He has supplied, I'll supply this link in the chat. The closest test we have is the IIHS roof strength test. He said, however, and I'll just give you a link. He has popped a link to that one in. He said, but just to note that this test was seized in 2022, but is unsure as to why at this stage. So there's a little bit of information there. Hope we've answered that question for you.
Tanner's research evaluation lead and did his PhD on vehicle rollover. Part of it was associated with vehicle rollover and biomechanics of injury. So that's why I knew he'd be onto it.
Yes. All right. Can you see my screen there, Ken?
Yes, we can see the learning management system. Looking good.
Yes, looking good. Hope you've all had a chance to log in. And thanks to anyone who's popped in their introduction there. Thank you very much. So yeah, this is our learning management system. If you just have a browse through, the rest of the modules will be available to you as the the sessions go on. But we do have a bunch of resources in here already for you in reference documents and resources, a whole lot of PDFs there for you to reference. We have the severity scoring sheet that Ken's referenced a bit earlier on, and a whole bunch of other guides and documents that were referred to during the session. So please feel free to jump in there and have a look. There is a video that Ken referred to earlier that I will pop in. We don't have it in there in the moment, but Ken, I'll grab that off you.
Yep.
And I'll pop that into the Module 1 resources. So yeah, under Module 1, we've got the Module 1 presentation that Ken has delivered today. So feel free to have a browse through that one. And your task for today, your task for Module 1 is this Module 1 quiz. So if you just click on that one and you attempt the quiz, it should take you probably 5-10 minutes max. But we will need you to complete that quiz. So it's a good idea to complete it after we've finished our webinar, so all the content is fresh in your mind.
It's a multi-choice quiz.
It is a multi-choice quiz. So any tasks that we do need you to complete for this course will be under the tasks heading for each of the modules. So the modules aren't available for you at the moment, but they will become available the day before each of the sessions. And so not too many tasks for today, just one quick quiz. And
so questions come in as you're doing that. When do you need to complete the task? Well, technically, by the end of the course, all quizzes need to be completed. You're right down the bottom there, Marissa, you can see there's certificate, feedback and certificates. That will not release until all those quizzes have been passed, so 80% or more. So you, in theory, can wait, but yeah, do them straight away, knock them off. Just talked about it. Some of those questions you'll go, oh yeah, you just talked about that. Done. But yeah, in theory, it can be any time throughout the course. Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions there? Great question. Thank you for that. We've got, so you've got a bigger assignment. You've got a couple of bigger assignments in here. Well, you're one big assignment, one sort of littler assignment to do. But just reiterate, if you don't have access to the learning management system, which Marissa's just shown you, you email training@safeSystemSolutions.com.au, make sure you've got that access. Reach out if you have any questions as we go. If you can't make a session, you watch the catch-up video, but log in a couple of minutes early before next session, some trivia and a chance to win a prize. Thank you, Marissa. Yes. Thank you, Ken. Looks like we're good to go. Thanks, everyone, for joining, and we'll see you for the next session. Bye. Yeah.